Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Van Holtz back again with another E-Commerce Conversations. I hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. And on the other side of the screen from me is Mr. Reynolds, back again from Barbell Logic. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you, sir? I'm great, actually.
Yeah, well, I'm great now that we're chatting. It's been a long time.
It's been a little while.
It's been nearly a year, December 10th.
Has it been?
Yeah, man.
Well, I've kept up with you. You're looking good. You're strong. You're setting PRs. It's been fun to watch you make progress.
You've been lurking me on the app?
A little bit, just seeing how you're doing. And yeah, it's been fun to watch you make progress. Actually, it's funny, you and I really know each other from the early days of Menfluential, where we both spoke there. We have so many guys that were speakers there that are now clients at Barbell Logic. And it's been kind of fun to watch the way they all have progressed. Almost like all you guys, it seems like a lot of you took a little while to kind of fully buy in. And, it's kind of I've often described this fitness journey, the strength journey, as kind of like a relationship, like a romantic relationship with somebody. When you go on the first date, there's really no commitment. You're just kind of testing it out, testing the waters. Let's see if I like this person or not. And it takes a little time, a lot of times. And then you'll get to a spot where if you decide to continue the relationship, you'll get almost like puppy love. You'll get kind of infatuation. Like, they can do no wrong. They're wonderful. Everything's great. And this is kind of, CrossFit's always done a really good job of this, right? It's like people like fully buy in. And then, the old joke about CrossFit or veganism or whatever. It's like, now I got to tell everybody about the thing.
Right.
It's my new religion. And I'm buying the tube socks and the shorty shorts and the sports bras. And I mean, not me personally, because that'd be weird, but they're all in. And then you get to a spot after you get through the puppy love stage. And I think it's the same even with like personal relationships or romantic relationships, where you're like, okay, now like that either kind of dies out and you're left with like, you see the person for who they really are. And like, they're fallible and they're human, and you choose to love them anyway. And you build this like really deep love relationship with the person. And I think, or you don't, and it ends. And I think with strength training and kind of fitness in general, the same thing kind of happens. Like, you get through this excitement phase and you get to kind of like, this is just part of my life now. It's not super exciting. It's just a thing that I do in the same way that I get up every day and like take a shower and get dressed and do my work. It's part of training, becomes kind of part of who you are, and not really defining your personality, but it's just like part of the daily schedule. And it's no longer exciting. You don't feel like you have to evangelize every single person on earth about it. It just kind of becomes like part of who you are. So it's been interesting to watch you guys, a lot of you kind of go through that process where you're sort of like not entirely bought in, and then you're excited, and then you're like, yeah, this is just like what I do. This is kind of part of who I am.
Yeah. So there's Thomas Frank. There's Tanner Guzzi. Is there anyone else that I'm missing? Is it just the
Robert Ordway, longtime client? Yeah. Brett McKay, who was in the early days of that stuff, obviously has been a really long time client. I've coached him for about 6 years. I feel like I'm missing one. I'm going to screw that up, and then somebody's going to get upset. Tanner, Thomas, Robert, you guys are all, it's also kind of interesting to watch your, obviously tremendously different body types. You got like Robert Ordway, who's like probably 5'4" or 5'5". I don't want to get it wrong, but
we'll say 6 foot. We'll say he's 5'11".
He's not 6'3", and like you can still see there's kind of a similar strength progression for most of you guys. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's fun to watch people get bought in and eventually be like, all right, this is what I do. And this is, it's been cool to watch your kind of body change, your performance change, and still hopefully lead to improved quality of life over the last couple of years. And, you get to make this part of your life, but also like, you're not a competitive powerlifter. Like, your end goal is not to compete in weightlifting, right, but it's to hopefully improve your quality of life just in general, and like row and be a better rower and interact with your family and your kids better. Like, all that kind of stuff is really cool to watch. So yeah, it's been fun.
Looking good. So we talked at the end of last year, obviously, with the whole lockdowns, there's a huge demand for people working out from home. I assume you guys saw that. How did you scale that up and maintain the quality in your space?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because at the time of the lockdowns, about 40% of our clients trained at what I would call, public gyms or big box gyms. And so while there was a tremendous demand for online fitness, online coaching, for about 40% of our clients, they lost access to their barbells and they couldn't really train the way we typically train. We're a strength coaching company. We're kind of barbell focused. That doesn't mean that's the only thing we do. We try to meet our clients where they are. And so whether that's a 70-year-old client who's not ready to, or can't barbell back squat, or whether that's somebody who's just brand new and sort of intimidated, maybe it's more of a mental barrier or emotional barrier than a physical. We got stuck with like legitimate sort of cultural government lockdowns where people didn't have access. So we had to figure out how to, if we had done the job the right way, and I think we did because we had very low churn last year, we spent a lot of time building the relationships between our coaches and our clients. If you build that right relationship, then when they lose access to the gym, they don't quit. We just go like, okay, what can we do? I actually talk about Thomas Frank, who's a good friend of both of ours, who's got a big YouTube channel. He joined Barbell Logic in the midst of the lockdowns and had no access to gyms and no access to barbells, didn't have anything at home, had some sandbags and like a kettlebell or two and some dumbbells and some dog food bags. And we just did what we could with what we had. You can still make progress and still increase stress and still make kind of linear progression, just a little more each time until the world opened back up and he was able to get access to gyms. And he's since built a really nice home gym. And so guys like that have still made progress. And so the interesting thing is like, last year for online coaching, all the gyms closed. It was a pretty good year for us. We're up about 20, I was looking at it this morning, about 24% growth over last year, this year, which is, somewhat unexpected, I would say. And so we've continued to just kind of ride that wave. I think there's this part where obviously, even as the world has sort of opened back up, there's sort of been a change of mindset, a little bit of a paradigm shift, I think, with people in a lot of places, right? And like politically and culturally, and certainly there's arguments about like liberty and freedom and all those sort of things. And the fitness world is really no different. There's been some paradigm shifts there. And so I think being able to provide, I think what we're really trying to do, and I don't say this very often because I don't want to cause major issues, but I think we're really trying to redefine personal training. Like, what is traditional personal training? Traditional personal training is you go to the big box gym, you got the 19-year-old kid with the purple polo with the name tag that says trainer. He's not really a professional, he's just like an enthusiast of fitness. And, a lot of those guys have great personalities. I mean, the ones that are successful are able to connect with their clients. It doesn't mean they're actually professionals and know what they're doing, and certainly not at an expert level. And so I think what we've tried to do is we've tried to connect clients to professional and expert coaches who are right for them, and they have access to that person no matter where they are. If they've got a cell phone, they've got access to that. So, virtually everybody on earth has access to a cell phone with internet connection. And so we provide all of the programming and feedback on an app directly on your phone. And the price is, you're in Austin, the price for online coaching is about probably 25% of what it would be for in-person coaching. So at a much cheaper rate, you get a legit, professional, well-educated coach that's well-suited for you. And you don't have to match up with their schedule. You don't have to, they're like, if you went to try to find somebody in person, like, well, I'm open on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. And if that didn't work for you, that's the opening. Like, that's your thing. And it's $800 a month. And you're just like, well, for $200 a month, you can come do this and you can train anytime you want and you where you want. And that's the same. And then the coaches can coach the same way, which is actually really cool. So, you've done this for a while. Like, you get your programming from your coach, you do the workout when you are available. You're mostly training at home. People train at the gym whenever they've got the time, and they upload their workouts. They upload their workouts, and the coaches can actually then break the workout down and the technique stuff down when it's convenient for them as well. So the rule is kind of within 24 hours. So, if they want to do it first thing in the morning or middle of the day or late at night, they can do that as well. So a lot of convenience and flexibility for both the client and the coach there. And I think that's worked well in a COVID or post-COVID world, whatever we're currently living in. I don't know if we're COVID world or post-COVID world, but still sort of in the middle of this.
I wanted to talk a little bit more about the team. How many people are working for you right now between coaches?
About 80, and about 60 of those are 1099 coaches. So they're, general contractor coaches, and then an employee staff or mostly leadership staff, about 20.
Walk me through, kind of like your strategy and your vision for how you want to lead your team, get them on the same page, bring on the right people, and, let go of people who might not be a good fit.
Yeah. So, obviously the biggest challenge for us is that nobody lives in the same city. We're not in the same office. I think there are tremendous advantages on some level to be able to, if there's somebody you need to talk to, if you're in the same office, you can just walk down to their office and be like, let's go do lunch together today. And you can walk through stuff. And it's obviously not a possibility. About 15% of our staff is international, and we're just all over the place. We're in every time zone. I'm so used at this point to set up Zoom calls, and you always have to hone in on like what time zone are we talking about, So we utilize a system. So I don't know if you ever heard of this system, but there's a group of guys that started with Andy Grove, who was a CEO of Intel, Hungarian-born immigrant. And then his understudy, the guy's name was John Doerr, and he sort of trained Google and Apple and Amazon. He had a book that came out several years ago called Measure What Matters. And it's really about, kind of took Andy Grove is known as the best manager of all time. Like I don't even know if this is argued. It seems like in the business industry and tech industry, they're like, Andy Grove's the best manager of all time. And he kind of pioneered this way of managing that, I would love to be able to claim it for my own, but we've mostly stolen it from him and then made it our own. So it wasn't a perfect transfer over, but what we did is we took a system that we've named it a little bit different. We use a system we call the game plan, which feels a little bit like corporate-y, which I'm not a big fan of these acronyms, but it has worked well. So it has transferred well to my leadership team, my employees, because it's so clear what each thing stands for. So the game plan stands for goals, actions, metrics, and execution. And so what we do is we have really my C-suite, which we call mission control, my COO, who's actually your coach, my CXO, my CIO. We sit down about once every 6 months and we lay out the plan for the next 18 months.
Hold on. What's a CXO?
It's a customer experience or
okay.
Head of experience. And we actually look at this. So it's kind of a better version than HR. So it's HR, but it's for both the client and the staff. So we're trying to constantly improve the experience of both, improve the quality of life of both of our clients and our staff, and pay well and make sure people are happy in their jobs. And so that's Nikki Sim. She does an incredible job. And that she was actually the very first employee that I hired. Andrew Jackson at COO. CIO is kind of similar to a CTO. It's kind of a technology guy that makes sure that all the systems are running in the business as you start to grow. Probably know this from Beard Brand. In the early days, there's a lot of manual data entry and spreadsheets. You try to figure out how to automate. And the bigger you get, the more manual data entry you get, the more human error you also get. So the four of us make up mission control. We sit down and we meet in person, or we do these kind of long Zoom calls, and we set the vision for the company for the next 18 months. And we do that every 6 months. So there's some overlap, just like, hey, how much do we need to steer the ship here? And we create a company game plan, and then we communicate that to the staff. And then the staff is made up of a handful of teams. Everybody has direct reports. Everybody knows exactly who they're reporting to. The teams meet and they figure out how to, like the content team or the marketing team or the sales team or the experience team, they build a game plan for their specific team that supports the company game plan. And then we meet monthly as a leadership team. So the way it kind of works on the monthly schedule is on week 2 of the month. So here we are in November going into December. In week 2 of November, Mission Control talks about where are we going in December, which really still fits into the grand scheme of things of the 18-month plan, right? And in week 3, the leadership, most of the Mission Control, mostly me, we have an all hands meeting in week 3. And it's a pretty quick, it's an hour-long meeting at most. We're not big on like long meetings, but I kind of walk through, here's where the business is going in December, and here's kind of a sneak peek of what's coming in Q1 of 2022. That's in week 3. In week 4, the teams meet and do one-on-ones. So we all do one-on-ones with direct reports. We have these conversations about both how can we support the greater company game plan, but also we have a lot of like non-agenda conversations like, how's it going? How's family? How's your spouse? Like, how are you doing in life? Like, or the struggle, the things that are keeping you up at night, personal, business, whatever. We have those conversations. And I think those are really important. And then in week 1 of the next month of December, in the first Wednesday of the month, the leadership team will come back and report back to Mission Control and back to me as CEO of how their team's game plan will fit into the overarching company game plan. And we do that monthly. So there's kind of something going on every week. Kind of starts with week 2 with Mission Control, week 3, all hands, week 4, one-on-ones, week 1, report back to Mission Control. And we're doing that every month. And those are the big meetings. So we just really have one meeting a week. every month, and it works really well. And so then, we've got little things that we keep track of. But the key there for each team and for the business is we really focus on 2 or 3 goals. More than that is too much. So you've got to figure out, you've got to hone in and like, what's the most important thing we're focusing on this month or this quarter or this year? What are the major, like 3 to 4 action items that will support that goal? And those action items are always able to be answered like yes or no. Did we do this thing, right? Did we launch X or did we whatever? The metrics that measure whether it's working or not. So we have, again, there's 300 different metrics we could keep, but most importantly, we have about 12 to 15 metrics that are very clear health metrics for the company that we keep track of. And we're very open and transparent about those things. And then the execution plan is, as far as those game plans sort of have some overlap across teams, we have to make sure that we have the right resources to do that. So as we prioritize the actions, I'll give you an example. So we're trying to automate payroll right now. Payroll's crazy at our company, right? Because we've got over 1,000 clients. We've got 60 coaches. Clients pay different rates because some clients came in the old days when rates were cheaper. And as time has gone on, the rates have increased. And so we're trying to figure out, so you look at all the charges, you apply the client and the charge to their coach. You just like, what's the payout? And the payout's the same because the coaches are 1099. So the payout is the same whether the client's paying, $179 or $225 or whatever it is, because they're doing the same amount of work. And so that's just become a manual, like just nightmare. And so we've tried to figure out how to automate those things. So payroll becomes very important. And as we do that all hands meeting, we set the tone. We say, look, if you're working on payroll automation, that's the number one most important thing we can do this month. So if you have other things that you're working on, it doesn't mean that you're not working on those other things. But if somebody's waiting for you on something for payroll or whatever the top priority is, that's the most important thing. And if other things get pushed to the wayside while you're doing the most important thing, it's okay, right? You're not expected to absolutely complete 100% of the things on your game plan, but we want to make sure that we allocate resources appropriately. So whereas that's where the execution piece comes in, and those are kind of action plans, just basically like just a checklist of chronological items of actions that we try to get done. So it works really well. That game plan, again, I've never heard of anybody doing it or calling it that. We sort of stumbled on it. I don't know. I've always said I've never created anything myself. I beg, borrow, and steal. And we were able to just do that I looked at these systems that worked for other companies that were bigger and better than ours. And those terms for some of your listeners, they'll know that what they call it, Andy Grove and John Doerr, they call it OKRs. You've maybe heard that. So it's objectives and key results. What I didn't like about that, what my staff struggled with, is that so you have objectives O and you have KR, and KR is another thing. So you have 3 letters, but 2 things. And objectives and key results are sort of confusing for a lot of your employees. They're like, okay, what's the objective again? Or like, what's the key? And the key results are really the actions. And then metrics aren't even on there, or KPIs, or those kind of like corporate-y things you hear about all the time. So we just took it and we're like, listen, what's the most logical layman's terms we can use? We're like, that's goals, actions to support the goals, metrics to measure it. And then how are we going to actually get it done? And we're like, oh, that's GAME, game. We're like, game plan. Yeah, that works. And almost immediately there was sort of a light switch that went off for my employees that they were like, oh, I get it. Goals, actions, metrics. So.
At what size company did you start hiring these leadership positions? Like how many employees did you have?
That's a great question. Well, I mean, how many employees? I had probably at the time we had a staff of 35 or 40 that were all 1099s except for me. And it was the single owner of the company. It was a Missouri LLC. We're now a Delaware C Corp. And I hired my first employee. So we went from 1 employee to 2 employees with about 40. And as time has gone on, it's grown. Now, at least I'd say 2/3 of my employees are also still coaches. And so those coaches, including myself, we still coach. And, again, my COO, who's, one of my top executives, is your coach. And it's important for us as we developed software. We've got, we're vertically integrated. We've moved away from third-party software, use our own software. It's important for the leadership team to still use that software. I can't just hear reports back from my coaches what the software is like. I need to be able to use it myself and see. As a matter of fact, most of our coaches are not just coaches on the software, but they're also clients on the software. So most of our coaches have hired other coaches that work for us to be their coach. So we actually get to see the software on both sides of those things. So yeah, when we got to about 35 or 40 1099s, we went from a team of 1 employee, me, to a team of 2. Like I can remember the day when I was doing payroll and all that, which I hated. And I started to hire out those things that I hated or that I wasn't as good at. In the beginning, when you start to hire those things out, for most of us that are entrepreneurs and founders, we probably do a better job, almost certainly do a better job than the people that you hire in the beginning to do that job. But if you do it right and you let them actually grow in their position, I can look back now and look at all 20 employees that I have, and they're far better at their job than I could ever be at their job anymore. Like, they're incredible at their position. And that's when you really start to make progress is, you put these people in place that are like, have so much more potential than you have in that same position. So we have an incredible team.
I think one of my challenges is exactly what you're talking about, where you're more talented than the people you bring on. And then eventually, I think one of my weaknesses was really the hiring and kind of like the game plan, as you say, like not bringing the right people in.
Yeah.
How do you filter out and get the right talent into the house?
Yeah. So there's two parts of that. How we hire, we've got a system that is built in that wasn't really in the original plan, but it's worked out really well. So we have an academy that we teach people how to coach. And for people starting with barbell enthusiasts, they learn how to become better barbell enthusiasts and coach their spouses or, their kids, their parents, their neighbors, whatever. And I can see how they do in an academy student situation and see how hard they work. And they don't know maybe that they're already sort of applying for a potential job for us, but we watch the students. We're like, man, these are really good, well-performing students. And then if they do a great job and they get through the academy process and potentially are in the process of earning their professional barbell coaching certification that we've built, we'll bring them on as an associate coach. And then I'll get to see how they work, and they get paid, but it's not a ton. And we just get to see how they work with the team, how they coach clients, how they're, customer service. We're a big client-centered customer service company, and see kind of how they work there. They have a 6-month maximum time limit of how long they can be an associate coach. And so they have to fully earn their PBC within 6 months or they're out. And it's like no hard feelings. It's just part of the, like if you can't earn your professional barbell coaching status in 6 months with us taking you under your wing, then, it's probably not the right fit. And then if they pass, they become a professional barbell coach, and we hire them on as coaches. And then you'd be amazed at how the vast majority of people that work for me, not everybody who are employees and even leadership or C-suite, started as coaches, but most of my coaches have a pretty amazing education or other occupational background. So, I've got people who are, macroeconomists, PhDs, medical doctors, PTs, engineers, a lot of engineers work for us. And they've been able to fill a lot of those roles. And so by the time I hired the person for a promotion, they've already worked for us for a long time. So we don't typically go out and try to hire like a COO or a HR person who hasn't spent time in the company. They've just kind of worked their way up. Now, as the business grows, that's not always going to be the case. And we have reached out several times. There's certain times that our coaches or our staff or even our clients aren't able to fill that hole or fill that role. And so that's a little more difficult. But, we're really clear when we hire somebody what their responsibilities and expectations are. There's a clear R&E for everybody. Here's your pay, here's responsibilities and expectations. I think people want that. They want to know what their actual job is. And then we do performance reviews and one-on-ones and go like, how's it going? And then also we notice you've done a great job here, but this is a little bit of a struggle. We'd like to step up this piece, or, do we need to hire another position and sort of take that off your plate and do something else? And so we actually had a little bit of turnover. We have very low turnover. We had more turnover than normal last month. I think we had 4 of our employees turnover last month, which is the most I've had in a couple of years. Completely unrelated to each other. Nobody did anything illegal or immoral. I had basically one that just resigned, who just kind of just wasn't really in line probably with company culture. I had one that was sort of a half, mostly resigned. And we kind of walked through that together to probably, kind of take the step away. And we had 2 that we ended their employment based purely on performance. And you could always go back to those R&Es and say, this is what you were hired to do. And it's not there. And we've kind of walked through that. And so it still sucks. I hate it. I remember firing the first person I ever fired, which was, 10 years ago. And it makes my stomach hurt and I don't sleep and I have gastrointestinal distress. And the same is still true today. It's just I'm probably better at the process, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't weigh heavily on me. I like my people, and it's hard to step away from somebody. You want to do it and allow them to keep their dignity. You don't want to burn the bridge often. You're kind of like, man, if it doesn't mean that you can never work for us again. Sometimes it does. It depends on how bad their performance is. So yeah, it's not very fun, but I think like anything else, having awkward conversations or crucial conversations, the book Crucial Conversations, what used to be called Crucial Confrontations, I think I think if we put those off, they become a cancer. People put those hard, awkward conversations off and they just continue to just eat away at you. And I can't stand confrontation. I'm not a sociopath. People who love that, I don't understand. But the longer you let it sort of work, it eats at you and eats at the company. And so I've learned how to just we got to have it and let's have the conversation and let's treat people with respect and dignity and be honorable and do it the right way. And so it's been an okay transition in some of those places. So
what do you do when you have someone who's a really good performer, phenomenal performer, and then you promote them to a new role and they're not successful in that new role? Do you kind of start that with a kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of deal?
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have a lot of experience there, but we do have a few that we've had like that. So sometimes we hire people based on in the new role in a temporary position. So we're like, you're doing great here. We're going to hire you for a temporary, 3-month position to see how this works out. And this is your R&D and this is what the expected metrics should be. And, I think it's important as a founder and CEO to not be super impatient. It takes some time for people to learn their role. So you can't expect a positive impact on the metrics in the first 2 weeks that somebody gets hired. It takes some time to learn. You talk about, you're better at their job probably than they are for the first several months, but it's your goal to let them gain control of the systems. I've said this before, you can have control or you can have growth, but you don't get both of those. So as long as you maintain control and micromanagement of those positions, you're never really going to grow. And so eventually you want that person to be able to take ownership of that thing. If 2 months in, 3 months in, they're still asking you about every single thing and asking permission and they haven't really taken control, then you go okay, they're not able to handle this additional responsibilities. So you often have a conversation. Sometimes you have put them on a legitimate performance improvement plan so that they're very clear on where you have to go. And you say, these are the things we'd like to see improve. And if they don't, then you step away. And most of the time that I've put somebody on a performance improvement plan, it's sort of a foretelling that they're not going to last a long time. So occasionally you get somebody that's like, there's almost a miscommunication of what they're doing. And they're like, okay, I get it now. And they just go nuts and they do great. But most of the time, it seems like for me in the first month, you can kind of tell if it's going to work. Not that it impacts the metrics tremendously in the first month, but you can just kind of see I'm a big initiative guy, right? So I want people to take initiative. I don't want people to sit and wait for me we have too many people. We're too busy. We have too many things. I don't want to tell you, I need you to do X, you have an R&E sheet. And so I would rather them take initiative and do something wrong than do nothing at all and wait. Well, nobody told me to do the thing. Right. And that's just kind of a big thing for me. We're people that take initiative. I would rather somebody be super take initiative, super ambitious. And maybe I'm I really appreciate the initiative and ambition. Let me steer you 10 degrees this way or 15 degrees this way and redirect just a little bit than having to constantly ride somebody and be like, I need you to do this. I need you to do this. So a lot of that just comes down to really clear communication and what their responsibilities and expectations are.
Will you ever do things like if there's a salary adjustment factored into the new role, will you hold off on all the compensation upgrades just to make sure hey, here, this is a test run for 3 months.
Yeah.
Doesn't work out. You can move back into your old role because you're really good at that.
Yeah.
We don't want to lose you as a team member, but there's always that risk whenever you promote someone that, it doesn't work out.
It's a great point. I don't know that we've ever done that specifically, though that's probably not a bad idea. What we have done is in times when we have either had someone leave, resign, be terminated, we've had other people step in and fill. A lot of times we take their position and rather than just take their entire position and hand it to somebody else, we might divide it up among kind of a divide and conquer. So, here's 3 primary responsibilities they had when we have people do that. And we tell them okay, let's see how, we know we're probably going to have to hire another replacement for this position. Maybe not exactly 1 for 1. And if you would like to take on that responsibility, let's see how it goes for the next month or so. And then we'll build the R&E for the new position. And if that's something that you're doing really well at, you've taken over events for us or something, then obviously a pay raise will be coming down. But we would just kind of want to see how it goes. Are you able to take that additional responsibility? So a lot of times it looks more like that when somebody leaves a hole and you go, okay, do we need to, I always ask, and the mission control team always asks, if somebody leaves, somebody resigns, somebody gets terminated, whatever it is, we always say, do we need to hire 1 for 1 for this? Do we need to hire another person to do exactly the same thing the old person was doing at the exact same pay or even more? Or would we be okay divvying up some of these responsibilities to the rest of the team, maybe increasing some of their pay and hiring, maybe it's a part-time position or maybe it's a different full-time position. It looks a little different. So each time you get that turnover, it gives you the opportunity to kind of rethink about, again, your coach, Andrew Jackson, came from one of the biggest engineering companies in the world up in Seattle. And they would create these position openings and they would have the exact R&E written. This is exactly what we're looking for. This is exactly what the pay is. The position was built and they would find a person to try to fill the hole. And I think when you're a startup company and you're growing, the position itself and the exact pay is sort of flexible because you're also trying to find the right fit and not just fit a person into the role, but like make the role fit the person and, vice versa. And so often, we're like, hey, this is the ballpark of what we're looking at the salary potentially being, but I don't want to talk about like details about pay and, benefits until we know exactly what the role looks like. So as you're interviewing people, and that's kind of, again, one of those things, if somebody comes across to me as like truly mercenary, they're like constantly like, what's exactly the pay? What am I going to get paid? What's the commission? I'm like, I don't even know what the role is yet. We're still trying to define like, what are your responsibilities? How do I know what the pay is until so like we've told you what the ballpark is. Let's figure out what the responsibilities are based on your personality and what holes you can fill. If you're looking for a marketing person, can they do social media and SEO, just social media, not SEO, like whatever that is. And that would change some things, right? Do we need to hire somebody for social media and then hire maybe an outside consultant for SEO or whatever? And so to me, that's a big piece too, that I want somebody to be like, and it's why I like hiring people from the inside, because they're often all in on the business itself. They know that I have a reputation for treating people fairly and paying well. And so we figure out what the job looks like first, and then we give them an official offer as far as pay and benefits go. And if somebody's really like pushy about what the pay and benefits are from the very beginning, before they even want to talk about the role, I'm like, yeah, it's probably not a good fit for us. And I don't know if that's right for everybody, but for me, that's sort of a big pet peeve of mine.
It's funny because we're kind of the exact opposite. We say like, here's your pay up front. Before we even start doing the skills tests or the interviews. And like, if this pay is okay with you, we're going to proceed forward, but there's no negotiation after the fact. So it's kind of like one and done.
Yeah, which I can see the advantages, both the advantages and the disadvantage to both of those situations. If you know exactly what you're looking for, then I actually think it's way cleaner to do it the way you're doing it, right? Like, here's exactly what we're looking for. Or if you're like, hey, I definitely know this is the person we want in this position, but we don't know exactly what the position looks like, but we want this person, then I can also see you sort of going like, hey, especially if you can wow them generally with the pay, or like the pay's, it's a pretty nice upgrade or whatever, then we can kind of figure out what the role looks like. And for us, I think as more of a tech company who's trying to figure out the whole, like what I don't want to do is I don't want to offer $85,000 or something to somebody, and there is a like giant hole that they can't fill. And then I have to fill that hole with another salaried position. So you kind of start to think like, this is an $80,000 job, $85,000 job, but there is a third of this job that this new person is not able to do. And now I got to hire somebody else to do that third. They're like, well, that position just cost me $120,000 and that wasn't the intention. So I think that's the reason we're in that. I don't think we'll always be in that season, but that's where we are right now as far as hiring goes.
I think we could probably talk about this for another 2 or 3 hours,
but
we're out of time, man.
Moving on.
Where can people get swole? Where can people get strong? Where can they follow you?
Yeah, so we're at barbelllogic.com. Again, we're just, we are a group of one of the largest online coaching companies in the world of really good professional personal coaches. I think one of the things that is unique to us is that we can always set somebody up with a coach that is as close to perfect for them as you can find. There's a ton of demographics I'm not great with, and there's certain demographics I am great with, but we have coaches that are great with every demographic. Like there's a coach for you at our business. So barbelllogic.com is a great, if you're looking for, especially if you're busy and you're in the tech world or the e-commerce world, and you're all over the place, you travel, you're in hotel gyms, you got maybe a gym a little bit at home, you're in, different fitness gyms all over the United States. It's a great thing to do because if you get access to a cell phone, you get super high quality coaching and training, which works great. And so, I think the other thing that's different about us is we really try to appeal to general population people who are trying to do this to improve their quality of life. This is not about competitive bodybuilders or powerlifters or CrossFitters, like for normal people who are trying to get strong and healthy and look better, reduce their waist size, improve their health, quality of life. Like that's what it all comes back to for us. And then we just try to wow them with great customer service and great coaching. And so, yeah, Barbell Logic is what we do. Again, we've got a Barbell Logic. We got a podcast. We talk a lot about business as well. If for people who are just not interested in the fitness side, but interested in the business side, You can go to the podcast, you look at the principles series, and those principles series are all very business oriented, like major principles that we build the business on. So that's another great place to go to. And then we've got a really good YouTube channel. We put out a ton of really high quality content that's totally free, will always be totally free. The goal there is to continue to establish ourselves as experts in the industry, and we'll never charge for content. So for people who are not interested in hiring us as coaches, that's totally fine. You can still get a lot of value, I think, out of our YouTube channel, out of the podcast, articles, ebooks, things like that. That stuff's all free and on the website and easy to find.
There you go. And you're on Twitter too, right?
Yeah, Barbell Logic's on Twitter. I'm on Twitter as Reynolds Strong on Instagram and Twitter. You know, I post a little bit. I'm on it every day. Like, that's where I get my news.
Your drama from.
Yeah. And then Barbell Logic is on all those things as well. You can follow them on any of the social media account. Again, same thing. We try to put out high quality content even on social media so that people can get value from what we do. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming back. Longtime friend. It's been fun to watch you grow and evolve the business. And,
thanks, dude.
And help keep me strong and fit as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's been fun. Keep setting PRs. I'm going to go, by the way, I'm going to go get on my first rowboat this week.
Oh, nice.
I've never been on a rowboat. I've got a buddy who was a high-level rower who was moved down to Orlando, and he just got I don't know, you would know the brand. I think he got it shipped in from Europe somewhere, and it finally came in. And so we did a little weight loss competition, and I killed him in the overall competition, but he beat me in the first month. So the rule was whoever won the first month, if I won, he had to come do strongman. If he won, I had to do a rowboat. So I'm going to go get on a lake, and I'm going to get in his rowboat, and I'm going to try to row.
Yeah, a single.
A single.
Oh, yeah, you're flipping it.
Yeah. I hope not. I don't want to, but I probably will.
Take some videos.
So, yeah, well.
All right, guys.
Thanks for having me on the show, man.
Yeah, this has been another e-commerce Conversations. Cheers, and keep on growing.